Hey there, listeners. I love interviewing people from around the world on this podcast, ones that have had a whole lot of different experiences coming from different walks of life. And, I had this gentleman on this interview that you're about to hear right now, a guy called Joe Davis. And Joe was served as the managing director and also senior partner at Boston Consulting Group for 37 years. Now, what Joe's done is he's written a book called The Generous Leader. And if you haven't checked it out, go and check it out. Wonderful book. Now, Joe talked about all sorts of things, and we just had a great dialogue in relation to leadership and so forth. But the one thing we did talk about was around work ethic, but we also talked about the importance of people and humanity in the leader. So with all of that coming together, it's like an equation that sort of gives you a sort of thing, which is the sum of all of that is leadership results. And that's all about it. This is what we are as leaders, is the results that we get as in relation to our role as a leader, but our organization and what we do for customers, as services, products, everything that we provide. A fantastic conversation with him, with a wonderful person. So sit back and enjoy.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas.
Hey there, listeners. Welcome to another wonderful episode of the Leadership is Changing podcast. Great to have you here with us today. I've got an awesome guest with me. His name is Joe Davis. Joe, a massive welcome to you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Excellent. Now, whereabouts in the world are you today?
I am in Bethesda, Maryland area, so Washington, D.C. area.
Nice. Very good. So
Good.
You're in the US and it's Friday, and I'm in New Zealand and it's Saturday. But it's really quite cool just to have this kind of conversation with technology and the way it is today. I've been a managing director and senior partner at Boston Consulting Group for 37 years, and you're also the author of a book called The Generous Leader. And so what we like to know, and I've actually just given a quick introduction to the audience, to our listeners, but we would love to know more about your background. Tell us more about you.
Wow. Look, I'm 67 years old, so there's a lot of you one could talk about. So I've got to be thoughtful. The way you asked that, I'll tell you, the first thing about me is I have 4 grandchildren and 8 grandchildren, and number 9's coming.
Wow.
And that is a really incredible part of one's life. I will say to all the listeners, I hope you're able to enjoy that someday. Been married for 43 years, which is also quite wonderful. Now, background as it relates to what we're doing. Since my work background is funny, I started, quote unquote, working, I don't know, I will say in 6th grade, where I had paper routes from 6th grade to 12th grade. And most 12th graders don't still have the paper route, but I guess I liked the job and I liked the money. And I liked it. I then managed restaurants even in college, which was unusual. Then my first job was at P&G, which was obviously a great experience. Procter & Gamble, as in sales. It's a great experience because it's humbling. I also had, my job in the restaurants, my job at P&G. And then I went to the Boston Consulting Group, which I was there for a long time by any standards, but of course by today's employee standards, we can talk about that if we wish. But all these places, I will say one thing, is I had incredible mentors or coaches or just people that I learned from, and just in a heartbeat. At the restaurants, the owner, hard driving, didn't waste time, but cared a lot about you performing. So he wasn't the nicest guy, but it was always about you doing better. So the business did better, what it results. But he always was pushing you to do better, which was quite a nice, as well as just seeing how hard he worked. It was a good lesson. Quite a nice mentor. At P&G, I could tell a story later about a mentor who just made sure I really spent time developing my people. And at BCG, I had one of those wonderful mentors. It's a funny word I use because he was tough as nails, but it was all about you getting better. And he's one of those kind of guys where he didn't think you're getting any better or he just gave up on you. Then you just dropped off the radar screen, which is, and some people are like, oh, good, Steve doesn't bother me anymore. I thought, yeah, it means he doesn't think you've got more potential. So you think it's wonderful. That's actually a bittersweet message, my friend. Well, that's a little bit about me.
So 37 years in BCG, that's a massive milestone. And so over those years, obviously, what I find is that a lot of recruiters say to people, 20 years in one company, or 25 years one company. But I think what they don't actually understand is you may be in one company for that period of time, but you do so many different roles and maybe across different regions and so forth that it's almost like a brand new organization, a brand new role all the time. How did you find those 37 years? How was it for you in being in one organization?
Well, I agree with you massively. If it'd been the same job for 37 years, which is unusual because well, then shame on me if I didn't like it and still worked there. So yeah, I was very fortunate, or I made decisions. So I had a chance at year 3, since you're in New Zealand, to go to Australia. And one of my mentors at the time said, "Well, Joe, if you go, I'm not sure I'm going to be here when you come back." So he didn't want me to leave. I talked to the CEO. BCG is a smallish company then. He said one of the best things he and his wife did, and many years ago, was go to Japan for 2 years when they had a chance. New experience, broadened his perspective of BCG, made new friends and acquaintances across the firm. Now, and I had 2 young children at the time. I could have said no because it's a hassle and all that. But, one of the things you want to do is grab the opportunities. If they fit, you can't, but grab the opportunities and the twists and turns when they come. And they're just going to make it more fulfilling. So I was lucky. I'll tell you the other thing funny about that is this was 35 years ago. Anyone with an American accent was impressive and intelligent. And so the partners, "Oh, you're coming to this meeting." I said, "I know nothing about the topic." He said, "It doesn't matter. Just talk in an American accent and they'll be impressed." Now, I don't mean to put that puts down, but it's just like, and of course I knew something about it, but he said, no, just share some of the wisdom from the United States, which anyone likes to hear down here. I thought it was probably a confidence builder. Hopefully I wasn't bullshitting. But then you mentioned it. I had a chance, same thing, moved back. 6 months later, my mentor said, "I'm moving to Washington, D.C. You want to open an office? You want to come and do it?" We were in Boston. We didn't have any ties to Boston. Now it was 3 children. And we said, sure, new experience. And then many years later, actually, I had a chance, the regional chair, head of North America. I didn't get it. First time I wanted it. That happened. And I could have quit, could have done a lot of things, but the guy that got it, well, he and I argue. But I think I said, "Hey, why don't you send me out to the West Coast to see if I can turn it around and make it really drive it forward?" He thinks he offered it. Doesn't matter. Here was another opportunity. At the time, my kids, well, they were growing, but 2 of them were still at home and they finished high school. In their high school, I went to the West Coast. My wife was back and forth. So again, that was a little bit, one might say, oh, a lot of hardships there, but it opened up new opportunities. So I don't know, I could go on forever with that question, but
Yeah.
I think one thing I did is I grabbed opportunities that you might think were disruptive to your life, but they just added so much to my work life and to my wife's and my personal life.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a very good point because I think for a lot of listeners is that someone right now might be thinking about there's an opportunity that I should go, but we think about all sorts of things. From what I'm hearing, what you say is put your hand up, go for it, grab it. It may not be perfect timing. It's never going to be perfect timing, which is interesting. So I like what you said as well about the broaden your perspective. It's giving you a different sort of perspective in
Yeah.
life. Mm.
Yeah. Can I build on that a minute? Because
Yeah.
2 of the executives I talked to for my book, it's not about the book, Don's point. Both of them have said your career, they were CEOs at the time, will take twists and turns. It'll take twists and turns that you didn't think was the right twist and turn. But actually, and one of them wanted to be, Joaquin Duato was in pharmaceutical in Spain. He wanted to be head of pharma for the Spanish market, but he got instead offered med tech for all of Europe. So you could say it was a promotion, maybe, but med tech is second sister to the pharmaceutical business. And he was really bummed, but he realized later on, this was a move someone was thinking through for me to broaden my perspective. And another client, Joanne Crevisat, who's the head of Tapestry, Kate Spade and those brands. She was a marketing person. No, she was a finance person. And the CEO said, "I want you to be the chief marketing officer." So I know nothing about that. She thought she was going to be CFO. So that's what you're going to do. And she was scared, not scared, but a little nervous. I don't know this role, but she said, "Thank heavens." So not just that, it's that people are going to sometimes offer you things that you think, wait a minute, you're sending me backwards. But if they're really moving you along, they're not sending you backwards. And
No.
there's a little bit of pride swallowing to do it and go learn in it.
Yeah, and I remember an executive at Hewlett Packard days in Asia Pacific, and he took a job which was sideways but down one level as well, and everyone was like, "What the heck?" 9 months later, the head of Asia Pacific became available, and he leapfrogged everybody because of A, he'd done that a couple times whereby he got more experience. So he was more well-rounded, if I could put it that way, with
Yeah.
experience, number one. And number two, he showed a willingness to go
Yeah.
and do the things that he wanted to go and do, which is, I think, is important.
I once had a bum. I once had a BCGer who he said, if someone says no to an offer job once, that's okay. Twice, I get wobbly. If they say no a third time, it's over. No more offers for that person, because just the opposite of your friend at HP or your colleague.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the other thing too is that you mentioned that you missed out on the role the first time and you didn't
Yeah.
get it. There are a lot of people who do go for a role, but they pluck up the courage, should I do it? And then they actually apply for it and they miss out on the role. What is your thoughts or advice or to them about if they do miss out on it the first time, what should they do?
Okay. I have several big advice. First, don't get depressed and all that. You'd be depressed for a week and angry, but week, couple hours, whatever, be normal and then get over it, because it ain't going to help you to be worried. That's number one. Number two, I do think it's wise to then say, okay, what are all the options that are exciting to me and will still lead to good paths? Don't just get, in that situation for me, I thought, well, I could quit. I could stay in the business I was in. I offered to go run the West Coast, but it was, and that was the same thing. I was running the Northeast, the largest system in the world for BCG, to the West Coast, which was probably 1/10 the size, but it was an opportunity. So that's the second thing. Then the third one I will say, though, is just what your colleague did. Jump to something, go to something that's interesting to you, exciting to you, still feel things fits on the path, and just put your head down and do a damn good job.
Yep.
Because it'll come back around. And I don't care what it is, do a damn good job. You go over there grumpy and do a shitty job, I guarantee you what's going to happen. You'll lose your job. You'll be fired. So that's the other thing. Anyway, I'll stop there. That's my 3 bits of advice.
Yeah, and that last one that you just said there, I think you're so right, because the first two is about attitude and it's about how you're showing up and so forth. The third one is, hit the ball out of the park and do the best you can, because as you say, it shows that you are that willingness again, and you're willing to get out there and do it. Your book, The Generous Leader, tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, The Generous Leader, the second half is 7 ways to give of yourself for everyone's gain. The second half, I can tell you what it's about. It's really what I'm arguing here. Is that I think leadership is a generous leader. Leadership is really about a person or the leader who gives of themselves freely, without expectation, a direct personal benefit or gain, to help others grow, thrive, develop, and thrive at their full potential. And a couple of things on this. It's bringing more humanity to the role, bringing your heart. But I just don't want people to get confused. You still have to get results. As the story was, you can be nice and get no results. You're out of a job. Now, I don't believe you're going to be an exceptional leader who gets the best results if you don't figure out how to motivate and inspire and move your people to their best. When you're a very new leader, you maybe have 2 people working for you, you can do all the work if you have to. So you might have to work a lot of hours, but you could do it. But that doesn't work once you have 10, 20, and if you run even much larger teams. So it's a very practical book about 7 different traits I think are essential. There's suggestions on action items to do. I will say my daughter said, Dad, no, she's my daughter, I got it, but she works at BCG. So I love this book because it's not purely theoretical. It's a lot of real stories. And you give me some things I can go do tomorrow, which sometimes some of these, anyway, I'll leave it there. But so there's action-oriented ideas.
Yeah, and I like books like that because there are leadership books out there today that's just full of theory that a lot of people can't even relate to. But actually having practical examples, that's where the relevancy comes in. And then going off to do something, the call to action. So that's very good. Yeah. Yeah, Joe, we've been talking about you and your leadership, but how did you actually get into leadership?
That's a fascinating question. I think, I guess a couple things. Sorry about this, but my parents got divorced when I was 8. I think even then I started to learn some independence and I got to do it on my own type of thing. I think then when I was at that restaurant, I started out as a soda ice cream scoop, making milkshakes. Eventually I was running the milkshake area and then the night team. And I think a lot of it, though, started just with the thing you and I already talked about, just damn hard work. Hey, this guy works real hard. Let's put him in charge. And I wasn't a jerk. I was a nice guy, nice enough. He's working his butt off. Let's put him in charge. So I think that started the evolution into leadership opportunities. I love being with people. I love it. I love it. I can't even say enough how much I love it. So, of course, if you're the leader of a team, unless you sit in your office by yourself, by definition, you're out there with people or you're just a bad leader. So I think one opportunity just from each led to another. I tell you now, I can tell you a bad story or funny story. When I went to Harvard Business School and someone said, "Oh, well, did you learn anything there?" And my argument is, no, you don't, but sorry, Harvard. Sorry. But you know what you do learn is funny. This is a little bit arrogant, but my wife, I was married at the time. She went to a class at night that they did for the spouses, mostly women, but there were some men there too. And they did a practice case class just to see what we did. And then at the end, the teacher said, "Now I'll tell you about March or April, you'll start seeing a shift in your significant other and they'll just be more confident. And she said, we are teaching them to be leaders." Now, I think I'd already had some opportunities along the way, but even that kind of story, and it's funny, I don't want to give HBS all the credit or any of it, but it's kind of story. It's just, that was probably, I'd already been leadership at P&G, but then there's a next step of, yeah, man, you are capable enough to step up and lead and help and drive success. Go for it. So now I don't want to give it to Harvard because I was already grew into leadership roles. So I think it wasn't my dad telling me to do any of those things. There was a little bit of proving to my parents I could when they got divorced, and that made me mad. So.
Yeah. So obviously there's a thing coming through here too. Really. One is about independence, about being an independent leader. And then the other one, I think I'm hearing from you right from when we started this interview, was around the work ethic and having a very strong work ethic. Yeah, definitely. Hey, so you've been talking about leaders in the sense of, but who's your favorite leader? Now, this person can be alive or from history. Who's your favorite leader and why?
Well, I'm not going to pick a famous person. I'm going to pick someone from BC. A guy named Steve Gunby. And let me tell you why. One, there's no such thing as not achieving success for Steve Gunby. So it's cool to be around. But the reason is why, and this is what I learned from Steve. It's not about, for him, it's like, okay, he's just very rapid. He's smart as hell doing decision trees. So we want to get here. What are all the branches that are not going to get us there? And so he would very early on avoid the bad branches. Now you might call, that's a funny attitude but that means you go down the path that's right, because he could see these paths just aren't going to work. So no, we're not going to bother it. So he was very driven, very focused. He cared deeply about people development. The other reason I'll say he's one of my favorite leaders is he was a tough son of a bitch for a lot of years. But as time went on, but he always cared about growing the people, but he also learned and grew and developed into, yes, I'm still firm. I want you to develop. I'm going to tell you clearly, but it's not like I have to be. So I just watched him mature and grow. He took over a consulting firm. He left BCG and took over a consulting firm. The stock was like at 18. It's now at 250 or something, public firm. So he also, but then he said to me a funny thing. He said, "Joe, it's easier when you charge because everyone does what you say." Whereas at a consulting firm, everybody's an owner. It's a partnership. But that also enabled him to learn a little more. He'll be mad, but he was a humble guy, but he was also very driven. He learned more humility and humbleness.
Yeah. So it sounds like he's very successful, going from $18. Now, let's get it clear, right? $250, not $2.50.
No, 250. Yeah, 250. You're right. It might be 220 now or 20, but it doesn't matter. But
he's learned what he learned, and he adopted and he changed, right? He adapted.
Changed over time. That's what I found impressive. Yeah. And he cared deeply about you growing. There's two things. He cared deeply about you being better. I'll tell you a story that he and I were flying to Toronto. We were going to move down to Washington to open the office. I told you that I was going to go with him. I had already moved because I had two kids. I wanted to get them in school. My wife was pregnant. Oh, 3. I had to get them in school. And we're on this plane. He said, "Oh, Joe, I got to tell you something." I said, "What?" He said, "Well, I've got a job offer to become CEO or president of a company." And my brain goes, "Oh, blank. Oh, shit. Like, what? I've already moved. We're supposed to open this up." And but of course I said, "Oh, that's cool. Nice guy." And he said, "Well, no, don't worry. There's a lot of puts and takes, but I thought a lot about it. And I can't do that to you and Sarah. I said, we're going to open this office. Yeah, I know. That's what I thought. I thought, wow." And I talked to him about it 25 years later. He said, "Well, Joe, there are a lot of reasons." I said, "I know, Steve, but you told me that." I said, no, that was absolutely a essential reason too. I committed to move. You had moved your family. I wasn't turning my back on you, which I was known at BCG, and it's a common phrase, but whose back do you have? And I have your back. I use that over and over, but partly because at that moment, that leader had my back. He cared more about my wife and me and our 3 children than whatever opportunity he had. Now, I know there was other reasons, but to me, it was very powerful. It was
Uh,
very powerful.
That is powerful. And then I find that people then go the extra mile for that person, for that leader. And I like the fact that you say there was a leader that we used to have in EDS days before we were purchased by HP. And the guy was always about the people. Who cares about the work? Because the work's going to happen if you look after the people. But he would write, and even in New Zealand, it was in his organization, there might have been 250 people. Every single one of them got a handwritten Christmas card from him with a special message for that one person, right? And it's like, and today, and we're talking about 25 years later, we still talk about him, and my wife and I, because she used to work for him as well. And we keep talking about the guy, and it was just like amazing. So it's
Well, I
though,
can tell you this, but I write 2,000 personal cards. Every card gets a note or I won't send it. My wife said, why are you doing that? So I like Christmas cards, but I like it better if they write a note. Now, fortunately, I'm not leading North America anymore. I'm not writing it to everybody. I've lowered my number. Anyway, it is the people that are going to drive the success of your thing. Even if you've got a genius idea, it's got to be sold, it's got to be marketed, got to be grown, it's got to be developed.
yeah. So definitely, Joe, the show, the title is called Leadership is Changing. When I say that title or that statement, what does it mean for Joe?
Well, you know what it means for me, because I agree with you, it's changing. And it's all about the people, which senior people have known forever. If you think about it, you read annual reports 30, 40, 50 years ago. Remember the letter from the CEO? It's all about my people. I remember I used to read those. I mean, what the hell is that all about? Now, later on, I understood, that it's all it's about, especially but I think the thing is that it's even changing further is that it's not just people, it's all about the humans. The days of Jack Welch, fire the bottom 10%, blah, blah, blah. Those days are over, or even IBM, which is an exceptional company. White shirt, blue suit, everyone's a cog in the wheel. You can't motivate and inspire people with that, partly because the whole work life, starting with the BlackBerry, it just all went together. People want and need to see the human side in the people they're working with. They have to bring the humanity in. Our book club, we're not at home, but look, we probably are. But, people work at home. It's just all changed. COVID put it over the end. So I think the thing that's really changed is that your EDS buddy, it's all about the people. But even one step further, it's all about the people as humans. And they want to see humanity from you, and they expect you to see them as a human. You don't have to know every idiosyncrasy about their life, but I got to know that you are Dennis, not a podcast person, but you're a guy who lives in New Zealand, who has a life. You just happen to be doing a podcast.
Yeah.
But, it's so easy for us. That person's a second-year consultant. Well, no, that person's Jim Smith, and he happens to be a second-year consultant.
Yep.
So I think and there's a lot underneath that, but that's what it means for me. Now, right now, in my country, that's all like everything thrown up in the air and say, what leadership's going to stick? But I deeply believe you're not going to keep the best people in your organization. I don't care who they are. If it's not a model where you understand they're a human, they understand your purpose, they're the right values, and you respect them and grow them. I don't think keep them. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you. Yeah. And I actually find that with the leadership is changing and keeping the people, it is all about the people and the people being you as a leader. You're a person too. So it's both ways, as you're saying.
Yeah. Yes.
Definitely. Yeah. Look, I'm finding that the world seems to be getting faster all the time. Consultants are telling us that. No, it's just that it is. And technology seems to be the driver behind a lot of it. But it's also around the social perspective, business, everywhere. What makes a leader successful today in a fast-paced, ever-changing world? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you and I will start repeating each other here because I think it's still about, it's still about my people though. I still have to slow down enough to understand I got some people over there that need to grow and need to develop. I'd say somewhere in here, like include a broader set of people into your meetings than you might typically, not just your cronies, but have some people that are junior, you have some people in different departments, and think about how you're going to draw them out and bring them into the room.
Yeah.
And someone said to me, well, Joe, but it takes so much time. So, okay, I got an idea. The 4 minutes it takes you to walk from your office down to the conference room, use those 4 minutes, think about, who's in here? That's okay. That guy's in that department. So what should I, if you're smart, you can think a couple questions in 4 minutes. So there's plenty of time. Now, someone argue with me. There's plenty of time to figure out how am I going to connect with my teams in ways that matter to them, even in this fast-paced place. The other thing I'd say is you just If you don't, you're going to lose them. And then whatever your fast pace is just going to be a spin and a swirl, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to a focused direction with
Yeah.
people knowing where you're going.
I
I used to have a, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say a lot of leaders use that time excuse, right?
All the time.
And,
All the time.
and I'm going like, you know what? You're the leader. You're the one that will dictate this time. You have got to use that smarter, because are you going to go into a meeting and sit in that seat and be the empty suit sitting in the seat? You're just taking up a seat. Or are you going to be the leader that will actually facilitate that conversation?
Yeah.
How many times have you seen it where you've gone to a meeting and people won't talk? Why? Because more than likely the leader's talking too much, or the leader's poo-pooed whatever people have said.
Yeah, right. That's second one too, right?
Yeah. So then nothing happens. So I think what you just said there about that time getting into the meeting, prepare for it. Ask the right questions, but draw people to talk about it more. And what I really loved about what you just said was about actually including more people and getting different perspectives, a broader perspective, rather than, as I think you might have said cronies. I'm not sure if that was the word you used.
I use that word, but your team, your little team right around, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what
of your team of 8 or 10 or 9 or 7, whatever, it's your 3 or 4 favorite ones. No, you've got others as well. And there's other people outside of that. Be smart about it. Be using it.
What Alex Gorsky was a previous CEO of J&J, and I was on a panel once, and he said, your role as a leader is not to have the best answer in the room. It's to get the best answer out of the room, which is just what you said. So that means you're going to ask questions. You're going to listen. You're going to ensure everybody engages, right? And it also goes this whole concept of humbleness, vulnerability, humility, whatever. The minute you think you got it all and know it all, you're dead. You're not dead, but you're just in trouble. If you're humble enough to say, I don't understand, and ask, and I don't know, and tell me more, well, it's going to get a much more robust outcomes.
I'm seeing a senior leader right now in New Zealand who's actually doing that. He's not listening. He thinks he knows it all, or whenever you speak to him, he knows better, or he already knows other people. And I'm like, no, you need to start waking up a little bit here. So yeah, I sing it all the time. Let's change lens now, because you and I have been talking about leaders. What about from an employee's perspectives? Are their expectations of leaders changing?
Well, I definitely believe so. And I think the data would say such. People, we can fix that. I'm going to say something controversial a little bit, but the leader of Facebook, we all can read about him. I don't have a single friend my age whose kid went into Facebook and lasted more than 1 to 3 years, because they just didn't. It didn't. You're not connecting with me. This isn't a human place. I think it's just the same as we just said, because of this work-life blur, the technology pressure, actually the social media causing just uncertainty and everything. People need to know they can connect with, not as their best friend, but that their leader's there. There's humanity in that leader. Perfection in the leader is a problem, because first off, there's no such thing. So either they can't figure out how to keep up with you, or the truth is they believe something's messed up here because you're not perfect. So what's wrong? And therefore there's questions about you. And also, I think you probably saw, but there was a Gallup poll, 2024 poll. They just said there were 3.5 million workers, or people, and I shouldn't call them workers, they call it the worker survey. And the involvement, enthusiasm, engagement was now at a 10-year low. Someone cares about me work was down below 40%. That's not very good. Someone's encouraging me to develop was now down to 30% of the people think that. And that's not, so I think people think their expectation is they want to see humanity in a leader. I'm not saying you need to cry or you need to talk about, you can cry if you want. I'm a big crier. Or talk about your children all the time. That's actually not humanity, if it's all about your children. But, admitting you don't know something, asking the right questions, saying you're stuck today too, those free other people.
Yeah, definitely. The Gallup survey, I wonder, was that 3.5 million, was that US based or was it global? Global. Wow.
Global survey, 100,000 teams across the world, it said. Yeah. So I wonder what the numbers are in the US.
Yeah.
It's a big my own country right now. I wonder what they are here.
That's where I was going with that question. Well, why I was asking that, because I wonder what it is like across per region or per country. It'd be quite good to see the stats, because I think there'll be some countries who are higher and others who are lower, and it's bringing it down. I remember we did a survey, or someone I know did a survey, and they said, oh, where does New Zealand fit versus Australia? And I says, well, this is where New Zealand is our results. This is where Australia is. But if it's combined, we're lower, because the Australians are pulling us down. And it was like, oh,
Yeah.
Strangers didn't like it, but it's okay. They'll get over it.
No, yeah, that wasn't lost on me when you started with it. The global, I know where you're going, and I'm not going to argue with you. I think
Mhm.
right now this country's probably pulling things down.
Oh, maybe, maybe not. I think it's going to be different things, and then I think there'll be also individual companies too, with their
Yes.
various leaders as well, that different experiences. So this depends on how people are looking at things for sure. Joe, if I was to get you to get your crystal ball out now and think about the future, where do you see leadership being in 5 years?
Well, I guess that's interesting because I'm about to answer in a way I've never answered, but I know where I wish it to be.
Okay.
So I wonder if leadership might be a little more confused in 5 years because AI is there now. And it might even be that you have your little hologram of you as a leader there now. That's weird, but it's an example. Or, wow, I know everything talks about bringing more of my heart to work, but gosh, it's still a go, get them play. So I am actually, we're in a major global world transition, right? Whenever the wheel was invented was one, from the farming community to the industrial community was one, the telephone, the payphone, the cell phone was the other, and now this is an acceleration. There is no question. Actually, the sad thing is I think every one of those transitions, there was a world war. So let's hope this isn't the same. But I actually hope that leaders, I think and hope that more leaders will understand, hey, I have no choice but bringing my human self to work because otherwise people are quitting on me. But I'm a little worried when you ask that and then you think about it, it just may be confusion. Like, what am I supposed to be? Okay, I'm trained to be this way. The signals from these leaders is this. Yet I can tell my employees expect this. Oh my gosh. And now my employees are being replaced parts of it with machines that are damn good. What am I supposed to do here? I'm a little worried that's the answer. That's not a very optimistic answer. Although I tell you what, it will be is you're the leader that sorts all that out. I do believe and still manages to connect with your people more closely than others. I do believe you'll win. Almost every CEO I talked to, they understood it was all about connecting with their people effectively, showing some humanity. Some told me stories about they were going to talk about how they were uncertain about something in their team. So you can't say that. You're the CEO. And the CEO said, well, I am uncertain. Well, you want to go up there and lie to the people? We're just uncertain of where this is going to go. But here's the plan to figure it out and how we're going to go together. Well, so the best leaders, I think they do learn that over time. And those that, I don't know, maybe it varies by country. I once had, I won't name the country, but
No.
CEO was speaking at BCG and said, oh, but you can't show any weakness. It wasn't American. I'm not, buddy, I don't think that's true anymore. I don't think that's true.
I actually think that's showing strength.
Yeah, I know.
And there is leaders out there in many countries who you can't show weakness. It's like being vulnerable or the human side, as you've been talking before. Yes, it's not about you showing everything and showing all your cards. That's not what you're talking about. It's about you showing the human side of things.
Yeah.
And that's all good. I think that the leaders, you talked about some really strong leaders as well right at the beginning, and I've worked with some leaders who have been real hard, and I didn't like it. I wanted to quit, things like that. But they have shaped me to be the leader I am today, along with the good leaders as well. And in fact, sometimes that tells me that's the kind of leader I don't want to be like.
Yeah, right. My daughter once had to do a project. She said, this is the third time I've done this. I don't want to do it. And I know how to do it so well. I said, fine, but just watch the manager. If they're damn good, learn everything they do. That's great. If they're horrible, then learn everything they do that you never want to do. There's something you can learn from any individual as long as you're thoughtful and pay attention.
Yeah. And Joe, when I was talking about the 5 year from now, you said that there could be a lot of confusion. And I think that what I get to do is work with a lot of leaders and helping them with their leadership brand or their branding. And it's more about what do they want to be remembered for or remembered as or be known as. And I think that a lot of them have no idea. They're not clear on the kind of leader they want to be and then so if I get them to get clarity around that to work on, that's going to really help them drive where they need to be. So I think they might help things.
No, yeah, I'm at a stage of life where I just read Arthur Book's Strength to Strength, that book for people as you move out. And I just did the chapter on death, which is so sad chapter, whatever. But he says, you don't have post-leadership eulogy. What is the eulogy you want people to say? Not how many cars you had or this or that, or someone asked you that, or what project was your favorite project? Really? I don't even remember. I remember the people I touched. So what would you want them to say to your point on, okay, well, let's say you retired. What do you want them to say in your retirement party?
Yeah. It's
And
about
not people that are afraid of you, but your friends.
Yeah, it's about your legacy, right? It's about the legacy you leave.
That's what
The legacy you leave, but also the legacy that you develop, which is our leaders for tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm glad you said it because It's not something like at 65, you wake up and say, okay, I'm done. What did I do? You had the chance to create it your entire career. So go start creating it now. Because by the way, it's too late then. All you can do then is go back and look at the score. But why don't you set the score? You're in control.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Well, Joe, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. If our listeners are wanting to get hold of you, where should they go?
Well, two things, most easy. I do pay attention to LinkedIn now. If you leave a message on LinkedIn, I will respond. I'll give you my email because I don't want to communicate via LinkedIn. Or I do have a website, joedavis.com. There's a little contact thing. But actually, LinkedIn is the easiest in that little message box. I will respond, unless you're trying to sell me something that I may not respond. All right. Sorry.
That's all good. Hey, Joe, thank you. It's been a real pleasure talking to you today.
Likewise, this has been great. This has been a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, there you go, listeners. Hey, check out the book, The Generous Leader. But the other thing, too, is are you today looking at an opportunity, or should you be looking at an opportunity to broaden your perspective? There are lots of opportunities out there for you to be looking at doing things as well. But are you an independent leader with a strong work ethic, but one that has the human side, that thinks about people? Because anything you want to do in life, you need to help people help you. And if you're helping people, that's where you're going to succeed. Hey, it's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.